Tired of theories. Now we need the truth.
The amount of time that Rex Heuermann was able to function and coexist in society as a free person before being apprehended.
Please keep in mind that
arrested.
this is not an episode of CSI.
1996. 2 human legs that apparently had belonged to a woman.
So if you go all the way back to Davis Park, Jane Doe, you have 4 women that were dismembered in a very particular way.
We are on Ocean Parkway. The area behind me is a massive crime scene.
By a phone call to that location to pick up a young lady. And Rex got in the car, okay, and she described him. And then Suffolk County Police came by and she had an interaction with him after Rex got out of the car. So there's got to be record there to show the validity of the statements here.
I don't want anybody to think that we have a Jack the Ripper running around Suffolk County with blood dripping from a knife.
Evidence is damning, probably a ton of evidence that we have not heard about. I have written down here 7 terabytes. You could fit over 1,250 full-length feature films, over 160,000 photos, and that's 13 years of evidence that they have to look through and put and present in court.
Brooklyn neighborhood is gripped by fear after a young woman is found hacked to pieces.
Sandra Acosta, a 23-year-old mom with drug problems, was dismembered just before Halloween 1991.
The question now for relatives of Sandra Acosta, as well as detectives, is a serial killer responsible for the gruesome discovery?
Somebody set out to do this to not only hurt other people.
Oh, look, another girl whose legs washed up. No. It was the same girl. It was Karen Vergata.
Did you do it?
And charged with the murders of 3 women, all sex workers. He is also the prime suspect in the murder of a 4th, which prosecutors feel confident they can tie him to. Their bodies were found within a quarter mile of each other.
Consistent with homicidal strangulation.
Mary Gilbert hopes those words may finally shed a light on her daughter Shannan's death more than 5 years ago.
My belief is that Shannan was murdered.
Shannan Gilbert worked for an escort service. She was last seen in 2010 at Gus Coletti's doorstep in Long Island.
All of a sudden somebody's yelling, screaming and banging on the door, help me, help me. I said, I'm calling the police. I took the phone, I dialed 911, she bolts out the door.
But her disappearance would become even more mysterious. While searching for the 24-year-old, police discovered 10 bodies on windswept Gilgo Beach.
The Gilgo 4, these 4 women were found as a direct result of Shannan Gilbert. She was also a victim out along Ocean Parkway, but because of her making her 911 call and grabbing Suffolk County, that 911 call is released. It's like 24 minutes or so.
I will not stop this fight until we find this killer.
We're looking at that we could have a serial killer.
This may be a cold case for some time.
It's unreal, and I'm just not.
You can get DNA from whatever they use. In this case, Gilgo Beach, I believe it was burlap cloth, a burlap sack, and that brings into DNA you can get from the sack. But in this case, there was hair on the sack, which can yield DNA as well.
Called out to coordinate a line search in areas that were looking for the remains, for human remains or decedents. And sometimes we'd have the forensic anthropologist with us out there just in case we came across something. And then at that point, we'll do our basic documentation, call the forensic anthropologist in, and we really let the anthropologist take over at that point and guide us through search and collection and recovery documentation. Fresh legal trouble for Suffolk County's disgraced former police chief. He's facing charges of soliciting a prostitute. James Burke was arrested this morning, picked up during a sting by park rangers at Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park.
Who served and paid the ultimate sacrifice. So for me, it's disgraceful on many different levels when you look at this monument and what this park stands for.
Correct.
You take a scumbag like this, who's going to go there and just disrespect what this whole meaning of this park is. So, I can't thank you guys enough.
Police found the remains of 11 people in the area of Gilgo Beach, including a toddler. They are now looking at other unsolved crimes.
There's still an awful lot of investigation that has to be done to fully understand how many people were victims to this individual.
Prosecutors say they pushed up their time frame on the arrest because Heuermann was closely monitoring the investigation and was a danger to the community. He has pleaded not guilty to the murders of the 3 women.
Investigators in New York, they're uncovering new evidence after arresting a suspected serial killer on Long Island.
Police say they found over 200 guns in a vault in the basement of accused serial killer Rex Heuermann's Long Island home.
You know, when you have a crime scene or a scene where you have a John or Jane Doe, you know, there's lots of things you can get DNA off of if you're clever.
Chat, if you've seen this. Let's let it play.
Counsel joins me now. Counselor, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Again, this is from August 11th of 2023, this summer.
You said these things very vehemently, but not only do we not have proof of what you're suggesting, the authorities say otherwise. They say that the wife was not in town at the time and that they do not believe the wife was aware of what was going. What do you know that they don't?
Well, several things I know, and they said that. I don't say now that they still say that. They said that at the very beginning of this investigation, but other things have developed. And from that witness, as well as from the circumstances of this case, I know that Mrs. Ellerup is conning the public to say that she's in need of money. She is not. And furthermore, she is complicit in her husband's solicitation and use of sex workers in his home over the course of years, many of them.
Press conference with John Ray and the header is Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond A. Tierney's statement regarding Gilgo Beach investigation and prosecution.
But we learned so much today. We learned that Rex Heuermann is bisexual. He has sex with women and men. And we found that out today in shocking form with a press conference with the Suffolk County Police Commissioner standing right beside John Ray as he said it.
And from that witness, as well as from the circumstances of this case, I know that Mrs. Ellerup is conning the public right now with this press conference and the rest that she pulled off to say that she's in need of money. She is not, and furthermore, she is complicit in her husband's solicitation and use of sex workers in his home over the course of years, many of them. She was upstairs when he would be downstairs having sex with these prostitutes.
Based on these 2 affidavits, we have learned that he had a gun, right? In each of the affidavits. Well, there were 4 witnesses that came forward.
Did you just say?
Oh, hell no!
But according to this affidavit, he used a handgun and pretended to be a cop. Again, we got to run this all down. You can't just ignore this now. You can't just say, oh, this guy's an EDP. Okay, he's got affidavits that task force has to run the ground now.
Recent court appearances, she arrived in a silver Mercedes, was equipped with a lavalier microphone and a Peacock documentary crew in tow. Ellerup was seen smiling in court as she was seated with her attorney, Bob Macedonia, and an interviewer from the documentary crew.
Asa Ellerup now is requesting those guns that are legally obtained between her and her husband back. What does this do to the gun?
Hell to the no. She's not getting those guns.
Of having encounters with James Burke at any time, going back to early 2000s and leading up to 2015 in his retirement. Call the Suffolk County Police. Call the police. Send me a message if you're afraid to call the police, and I'll forward your message to the police. Myself, personally, I'm not afraid of this scumbag, dirtbag James Burke. He needs to be brought to justice if he's responsible for any of this stuff. And there's a chance that he is. He is very dirty, and he is involved in very dirty